Hello, good morning, everyone. Once again, I hope the screen is visible to you all.
Yeah, it's visible.
Thanks. Just a second. So, in the last class, we discussed about what the actual meaning of the BI development is, and we looked into the high level, or basically the high level architecture of what the BI development looks like in an organization, and we looked into some of the uh, BI tools which are actually used. And then we looked into what the Power BI actually is. Power BI is actually the stack of components uh, which ultimately is used for the business intelligence. And then we looked into basic GUI of Power BI, how it looks like, what are the different views in Power BI, okay? And that's it. So today we'll start with looking at how to install the Power BI. So first thing first, what you need to do is you need to go to the uh, Microsoft Store, okay? And once you're there, you need to just a second, you need to just search the Microsoft Power BI. And once you do that, you see there's a Power BI desktop, okay? And you need to click on that. See, in my case, since it's installed, it's saying open, but if you have not installed it, this tab will be named installed, and you just need to click on the install, and it's just a very straightforward process where you just need to click next to 2-3 times, and there's no, I mean, it will not ask any password or anything, okay? It will not ask you anything. You just need to click next, and the Power BI will be installed. As simple as that. Hope this is clear, people, how to get the Power BI installed in your systems. Okay. So let's look at the workflow that happens in the Power BI, or basically in the BI development using the Power BI as a tool. Okay. So first of all, it starts with connecting to data sources, connecting to data from different sources. Okay. And here, when we say we connect to different data sources in Power BI, there are different storage modes. Storage modes in the sense, either you can connect to data sources in the import mode, or you can connect to them in direct query mode, or you can do that in one more way, which is called a live connection. Okay. So there's a different way in which you can connect to data sources. And let me show you how many data sources you can connect to in Power BI. Okay. If you open the Power BI, once you're in the opening screen here, there's a tab called as Get Data. If you click on Get Data, here you can see on this drop down itself, there are so many data sources. But if the data source that you want to connect to is not enlisted in this drop down, then you can certainly click on More, and then you can see actually how many data sources that you can connect to. So all of these data sources you can connect to. These currently are more than 100. Okay, So you can get the data either from Excel file, CSV file, or you can get the data from a folder or a PDF. So IBM database, Oracle database, SQL Server database, MySQL database, you name it and you have it. It's as simple as that in Power BI. You can get the data from Azure Data Lake, the Synapse. Okay, so these are various options or the sources from which you can get the data into Power BI. Okay, so that's about getting the data into Power BI, and then there's a next thing called as transform the data. Now, when we say transform the data, what we mean is the ETL. Okay, and ETL stands for extract, transform, load. So within Power BI, we have an in-house ETL tool, which is called as Power Query Editor. So in Power BI, when we talk about transforming the data, what we mean is using Power Query Editor to clean the data. Okay, that's what it is. Okay, so whatever transformations that you do in Power Query Editor, those steps will get stored and the clean data will be loaded within Power BI desktop. Okay, and then comes the next step, that is modeling the data. Now, what I mean by modeling the data is when you have n number of tables, what you need is the relationship between those tables so that you can uh, actually create the joins or you can create the filter flows. Okay, so the modeling is necessary, and modeling means you can do star schema model or maybe the snowflake model. Let me just show you how it looks like. So if I open any file here from my existing this thing, just give a second till it opens. Now, when I say Power Query Editor, there is a tab called as Transform Data. If I click on Transform Data, I'll be taken to a new window called as Power Query Editor. Okay, and Power Query Editor is where the transformations will take place. So you can see on the left-hand pane there are the table names basically, and these are nothing but the queries. Okay, table names are basically the queries, and yeah, on the right hand side with respect to each and every table, you can see the transformation steps that were performed. Okay, so this is what the Power Query Editor is. Currently, it is showing the data source error. I'll show you later how to come out of this error if you have the data source error, which is shown here. Okay, what happens is that sometimes you might store the particular file somewhere else compared to earlier. So when that happens, you will get this data source error. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So this is what the Power Query Editor looks like. And once the data is brought from Power Query Editor to Power BI Desktop, you can see that data like this in the table view. Okay, so this is the table view where you can actually see the data coming from Power Query Editor. And then in the model view, we actually model the data. And when I say model the data, what I mean is we establish the relationship between the different tables. Now, if you look at this film table, it has the relationship with the country table. Okay, so just a second. So if I look at this, it has the relationship with the country table as well. And what is the common key which is joining film table with the country table? Can anyone tell me? Yes. Can you look at this and let me know what is it?
Country ID.
Country ID, right? So country ID, which is there in both the tables, that is country table as well as the film table, is used to join or establish the cardinality between the country table and the film table. And not just that, here we establish the filter flow as well. Okay. Right now, you need not worry about the filter flow and joins or cardinalities. I'm just telling that because all of those things will be done while doing the data modeling. Okay. But filter flow is what you can see in this model. Can you see this arrow, which is coming from different tables here? The arrows which are mentioned on these lines. So these arrows, they actually tell you what's the filter flow. So if you compare these two tables, the country and the film table, the filter flow is from country table to film table. It means the country table is able to filter the film table. Okay, so that's what it means. But let's have a look into that deeply in the later classes when we actually discuss the data modeling. But for now, you understand that the data modeling in the sense establishing the schemas, establishing the cardinalities, mentioning the filter flows, all those things. Okay. And then comes using the DAX to create calculated columns and measures. Now, if I just show you the already existing dashboard, so what I did here is I created a separate table to store all the measures. Can you see these measures? These are nothing but the calculations or the expressions that have been calculated based on what we need in the reporting end. Okay. For example, the total movies is a simple DAX function which will give you the sum of basically the count of total movies, not the sum. It will give you the count of total movies. Similarly, total Oscar movies will give you the count of movies that have won the Oscar. Total profit will give you the sum of profit. Okay. So like this, there are many other measures that we created. And similarly, we created the different calculated columns as well. Now, if you look at this, in the film table, it has many calculated columns as well. Okay. So if you look at, let's say, for example, the profit margin. So this is one of the calculated column which was created. And uh, the box office dollars minus budget dollars divided by budget dollars will yield you the profit margin. This is the actual thing. Okay. So just like this, there are different calculated columns that were created. Like if you see, we have created a flag here based on how many number of Oscars a movie has particularly won. Okay, so like this, we can create the calculated columns and measures. Both are different and work in a very different way. We'll discuss that in detail as well. And remember that to do the calculated columns and to do the measures, you will need to use DAX in the front end, and DAX stands for data analysis expressions. Okay. And once this is done, we actually create the reports and visualizations. And the reports and visualizations basically they look like this. Report in the sense that there'll be one PBX file with many pages. Okay. And all these pages together, they constitute one report. Okay. So this is what a report looks like. Okay. And once the report is done and the visualizations are created and validated, then you will publish, share, and collaborate your work with the business end, and you will do it through anyone? How you will do this? You will use
Power BI services.
come again?
Power BI services.
Yeah. You will do it by publishing the same into Power BI service. Okay. And Power BI service is a cloud platform. Okay. So this is the basic workflow of how the things happen in Power BI. Any doubts with respect to this, people? Okay. Moving ahead. Okay. So Power BI, as I said earlier, you can connect to different kind of data sources when you are in Power BI. You can basically get the data from different sources in Power BI. Okay, so let's try to have a look at the kind of data that we can connect to when we are in Power BI. Okay, so let's say I open a new instance. Okay, let me close this one. and let me open a new instance of Power BI, and yeah, this is open. And let me check where my data is. Let's say, for example, I store a data in let's call this the ETL data, where there are certain, if you can see, there are CSV files and there are Excel files, and I also have opened my SQL Workbench as well as SQL Server Management Studio SSMS, so that I can get the data from those databases as well. So we'll look into how to get the data from different sources. Okay. So let's say, for example, first let me bring in the data from a CSV file and then an Excel file, and then let's go to the databases. Okay. So if I open the Power BI, okay. So here, what I need to do is in the Home tab, there'll be a Get Data option. Okay. And I need to click on that. And if let's say my option or the option from which I'm trying to get the data is already enlisted here, then I can simply click on that. Else, if it is not here, then I can certainly click on more, and more options will be enlisted. However, what I'm looking forward to now is just a text bar CSV, which is comma separated value file. I want to connect to that. Then if I look at this, I'll try to get one CSV file, let's say this particular table. So product details. Okay. I'll click on that and I'll click on open. And now you see, before loading that data into Power BI, you'll get this window. This window kind of gives you the preview to the actual data that is coming into Power BI. Okay. So if you see, the delimiter is mentioned as comma because it's a comma separated values file, CSV files. And the data type detection is based on first 200 rows. However, you can make it based on entire data set, or maybe you can select this as well. Do not detect the data types at all. Okay. But let me make it, keep it in the default mode, which is based on first 200 rows. Okay. So this is what it is. Okay. Now, just looking at this table, what do you think? Is it a completely clean data, or this data needs to be cleaned? Is the table ready for usage, or do you think certain transformations are needed for this to be used later for analysis? Yes?
Yes.
Quickly, people, think.
This is the raw data. This is not clean.
Or can you be a bit more louder, please?
I think this is the raw data. This is not a clean data.
Yeah, this is
We
the
need to
wrong
improve it.
because if you look at the column headers, right? Column headers are named column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4. That's not how the relational database management system looks like. Okay, so relational database, so column headers will be having unique values as well. Okay, and what we think here is that the first row which you're seeing here, this is nothing but, what is this? The first row itself is a column header. Yes or no? The product ID, the product brand, the type, the length, width into depth, the category or subcategory. These are nothing but the column headers, and these should be listed above like this. So we know that there is certain amount of transformation or cleaning is needed for this data to be used for the analysis purposes. So the thing is that you have two options. One is to load the data or to transform the data. If you think the data is clean enough to be loaded into Power BI Desktop directly, then you can certainly click on load. However, if you think that this data needs a bit of cleaning and transformation steps, then you can click on transform data, and guess where it will lead you? Anyone? If you click on transform data, what will open? What might open? Let me show you.
Open Power BI
Yes,
script.
if you click on transform data, it will lead you to this new window. And can you read this? What it says? Power Query Editor. Okay, so Power Query Editor, as I said earlier, is a different window where you can do the transformation steps. Okay, where you can do the transformation step. Let me show you a simple transformation step here. If I use this simple option, use first row as headers, and you see the first row actually became the headers now. It's a bit cleaner data compared to earlier how it was. So right now, if you see, there are certain transformation steps that have been added here. But again, let's not get ahead of ourselves. So the bottom line is that if you think that the data is clean, you can load it directly into Power BI. However, if you think that the data needs a bit of cleaning and transformation, you can take it to transform. I mean, you can click on transform data and take it to Power Query Editor. Hope the point is clear, people. Yes or no?
Yes, yes, sir.
Now let's try to look at how to get the data from Excel source. So I'll click on get data, click on Excel workbook. And then there's this file which is called store cost, which is an Excel access file. I click on open. And now see what it is showing me is this store cost Excel access workbook. It has only one sheet. However, if it has multiple sheets, all those multiple sheets will be loaded or enlisted here. You can select the sheets that you want to get into Power BI. Okay, right now there's only one sheet, so I'll just click on this so that I'll get the preview of it, just like I got the preview of the previous table which I brought from CSV. Okay, and this is how it is. And if I think that this data kind of looks clean compared to the earlier table, so I'll not take it to the transform data, I'll load it directly into Power BI. And once that happens, you can see that table in Power BI desktop directly without going to Power Query Editor. Now you see that table will be enlisted here. You can see this table. And if you actually want to see the table structure, you can go to the table view where you can see that table and the values. Hope the point is clear on how to bring the data from Excel and CSV, people. Any doubt with respect to this?
Pawan, so in last table, right, we have raw data. So there we got the suggestion. So those headers, column headers are the suggestion from Power BI, or those are the values which we have entered for the column headers.
Let me do one thing. Let me try doing it once again and let me show. Okay, so that'll be. So I'll go to text or CSV. I think it was product details if I'm not wrong, right? So yeah. So what exactly is the doubt? I have two options here. One is to load or one is to transform the data.
Yes.
Huh.
So we have clicked on transform the data, and then we open the Power Query Editor, right?
Yes.
So yeah,
Mhm.
then I guess you have do something,
Yeah,
and
I don't have any suggestion. The thing is, I know that the first row is a header actually. That's why I clicked on this and they were converted to headers. That's the only thing.
okay, so this first row is already like a value entered in the table.
So the thing is, yeah, see, it has not detected the first row is a header. That's the reason I have to manually use this. Use first row as headers, and then it will be fine.
Okay.
Can you get this now?
Okay, so earlier column name was column 1, column 2, column 3, like this, and then it's changed to this, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, understood. Okay.
So I'll just close this. I don't need this table right now. So I'll discard the changes that I did in Power Query Editor. Anyways, we'll talk about that later, when to apply the steps, when to discard the steps, when we actually start working on the Power Query Editor. Right now, our aim is to get the data from different sources into Power BI and how to do that. Okay. So now let's try to understand how to get the data from some databases, like let's say SQL Server. Okay. So what I'll do, first of all, we need to make sure that if you're bringing the data from SQL Server, your SQL Server should be running. Okay, let me check here. I think it's running, and this is your SQL Server name. Always you need to remember that this is your SQL Server name, and if you have given it any password, then you can enter that as well. However, if you use the Windows authentication, then it will not ask you for the password. Okay, and I'll just simply click on connect. Then it'll be in the running condition. Then if I look at the databases, okay, I have restored a database named AdventureWorks 2022 in this SQL Server. Okay, and in that there are various tables. Let me show you one particular table, that is sales order detail. So if I load this table in the SQL Server, let me show you how it looks like. So let's say select top 1000 rows. Okay, so this is how this table is. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to get this table into Power BI. So how to do that? So I'll show you how. So first of all, this SQL Server should be running, which it is running. So then let me go back to Power BI. So then I'll click on get data, and there I need to select what? SQL Server. And then I need to enter the server name. Okay, I have stored my server name in yeah. And this is my SQL Server name, which I copy and paste here. And the database that I'm trying to bring into Power BI is AdventureWorks 2022. I'll enter the same. Okay. And once I do that, I have two options, either to import the data or bring it from direct query. I'll let you know the meaning of these two when we discuss the difference between the import mode, direct query mode, and the live connection. But right now, I'll bring it in the import mode. So I'll click on OK. And when I do that, now you see every table or a view that is in that database is enlisted here. Okay, so the table that I was looking forward to was called sales.sales order detail. So I'll click on that. I'll select that, and again you will have the preview of this table. Can you see this? Okay. And again, if you think there is some cleaning needed with respect to this table or the transformation is needed, you can certainly click on transform data. However, if you think that the table is ready for analysis, you can load it directly into Power BI by clicking on the load. Is that clear, people? So now you see this table also is in Power BI. Sales order detail. Any doubt with respect to this, people?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Now, let me show you one more interesting thing. Whenever you bring the data from a database, you have an option to write the query in Power BI itself. Okay. Let me show you what I mean. So if I look at the way this table is, okay, it has different columns: order ID, order detail ID, carrier tracking number, order quantity, product ID, and various other columns. Okay, but let's say I want to get the orders only with the order quantities that are higher than 5, higher than or equal to 5. Okay, then what you'll do to write the SQL query, what you'll do here? Can anyone tell me? Yes.
Order like we have to get the condition like order quantity is greater than 5.
We have to write, we have to include it in this query that order quantity is greater than 5, right? So basically what I can do here, select star from adventureworks.2022.sales order detail, where order quantity greater than or equal to 5. Hope you guys know this, right? So that only the records with the order quantity which are greater than 5, greater than or equal to 5 will be loaded. Okay. However, what I say is this can be done in Power BI while getting the data as well. Let me show you what I mean. So if I look at the Power BI, the data that I have gotten here, which is sales order detail, you have all the orders. No matter what the order quantities, you have all the orders. But let's say if I want to bring only the records with the order quantities that are greater than or equal to 5, the same I can do by writing the query in Power BI desktop as well. So how to do that? Let me show you. I'll again go to Home tab. Okay, I'll go to Get Data, SQL Server. Then I need to write down the server name, the database name. And here I need to go to the advanced options. And here, can you see there is an option to write the SQL statement, obviously the SQL query. So I can write something like select star from sales dot sales of detail. What? Anyone? What's the exact name of the column? Let me just check. This order QTY. Okay. QTY greater than or equal to what? 5. Okay. And if I complete this statement and click on OK, then you see what will happen. Now you are greeted with a new window where you already have that table that you're looking for, that is sales order detail. And not just that, you also have the order quantities filtered. Can you see? If I just, let's say, load it in the Power BI desktop, now you will be having the, it will be loaded as query 1 because you have written a query for that. So if I show you the query 1, it is the same table, that is sales order detail. However, there's one difference. The order quantity here is always greater than or equal to 5. Okay. Is this clear, people?
Yes.
Okay. And although I've written a very simple query here while getting the data, you can write the queries involving the multiple joins, and you can write any kind of SQL queries here that you use to create the views. Okay. So all that can be done when you're bringing the data from the database. Any doubt with respect to this, people? With respect to bringing the data from SQL Server? Okay. We'll proceed to the next point. Okay. Now let's say if I want to bring the data from MySQL. Okay. So again, the same thing, your MySQL instance need to be running. Okay, let me just check by refreshing it. So I think it is on. Yeah. And then I just show you, there are some of the tables, okay, in MySQL by default. One is called a Sakila table in Sakila database, where it has certain films database, okay, and then it has one more system database, and there's also this one database called as world database, which has again different tables. Power BI, okay, and let me show you how to do that. So I'll go to the Power BI again. I'll go to the get data and more, because MySQL is not enlisted here. So I need to click on more. And then I go to MySQL database, connect. And there again, I need to enter the server name. So you need to enter the server name of your MySQL data. So it's the server name. Copy and paste. And the database that I'm trying to get here is, let me see, this one I'll get, Sakila database. Okay. And if I click on OK now, now you see, you can get any table from that particular database system. So I'll click on Sakila.film table. So if I load it here, then again, you'll be having that table loaded into Power BI. Okay, just like you see here. So you see, this is the Sakila film table where we have different columns and basically the measures which help us analyze the films database system. So this is how to bring the data from the MySQL. Okay, and always you need to remember that while we are bringing the data from either any of the database systems, that database system needs to be, or basically that database server, it needs to be running. Okay, and let's say if you want to connect with any other database, let's say if you want to connect to Snowflake, okay, you can click on, you can search the Snowflake here. Here's the Snowflake, and again, if you click on connect, it again asks you to enter the same details, the server and the warehouse name, which is warehouse is nothing but it's quite similar to the database. Similarly, if you want to connect to, let's say, Oracle DB, okay. So let's say, yeah, Oracle database. Again, if you click on connect, it gives you this option if you're there's a thing, the client is not installed, but if you learn more, you can actually install that. Okay, so that needs to be installed, and then you are ready to go with the Oracle as well. Similarly, what happens is that before connecting with the MySQL server, it will use similar message. Okay, you need to install an extension as a connector between MySQL and Power BI. So when you install it, you'll be having the connector through which you can directly bring the data. And similarly, you can connect with maybe some more database like, let's say, IBM DB2 database. So again, you need to enter the same, that is server name, database name, and if you have any query, you can write the query SQL statement here as well. Okay. I hope it is clear with everyone how to bring the data from different databases or data sources into Power BI. Any doubts with respect to people? Yes. If there are no doubts, then we can definitely proceed ahead. Okay. So next thing that we will discuss is this very important thing, that is, what is the import mode, what's the direct query mode, what's the live connection, and what's the dual mode or composite, or basically the hybrid mode. Okay. So first of all, we'll discuss about the difference between these two, that is the import mode and direct query. Basically, live connection, very similar to direct data in the cube form. I'll tell you what the cube form actually is, but here we'll discuss this now. So now, first of all, let's talk about the import mode. Okay. Let's say if I bring the data in the import mode. Now, when I bring the data from something like Excel workbook or CSV or flat file, the only way in which I can bring the data is import mode itself. Okay, direct query and live connection will be in question or will be in existence only when we bring the data from database. Okay, that you always have to remember. But whenever we are bringing the data from the CSV files, flat files, or Excel files, the only way you can bring that into Power BI is by import. Now let's understand what is this import mode. Okay, so in import mode, what happens is that when you bring the data via this get data option, okay, the data, let's say I have used this one. This one comes from, I think, the CSV file, the stored construction cost. I think it's a CSV or maybe Excel file. Okay, so this data is actually in Power BI. Meaning, if I look at this table in the backend, so in the backend, it's actually CSV file, the stored location, right? Obviously, if it's a CSV file, and right now this file I have brought into Power BI, okay, and it is stored in Power BI now. Okay, the thing is, you might ask, what if some new records get added into the original file? Let me show you the original file. Original file is this one. So let me show you how it looks like. So original file. It's getting a little bit. Excel sheet, just a second. Close this. Excel sheet. Okay. Now let's say we are getting this data from this Excel sheet into Power BI. Okay. And once we have the data in the Power BI, it will be enlisted here as one more table and the values will be shown here. Okay. And then the thing is, what if some new records or new columns get added here in the original table? This is the original table which is in the backend, and here we'll be having the table which we brought in the Power BI. Then this also is the original table itself. But you might ask, what if some extra data is added into this? You might ask that, will it be readily available here as well? You have that question in your mind? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Have you understood the question in the first place?
Yes.
Okay. So the thing is that here in the home tab, if you look at this, this is the refresh button. Okay. And what this does, if I click on the refresh button, all of the data will get loaded again from the backend. Can you see this? See this, it's getting loaded row by row once again. And if, let's say, in the original data source that is in the backend, if there are any new records or new columns that get added, it will be shown now because we have refreshed or we have reloaded the data. Okay. However, if, let's say, something gets added in the backend, okay, like for example in this database, or like for example in this Excel sheet, okay, if something new gets added here and you don't refresh it here, that is, if you still don't refresh it in Power BI, this will stay in its original state. Okay? It will not have the new records, as simple as that. And it means that the data is actually in Power BI and it is stored in Power BI and it is by making use of one Vertipack compressor comes into picture only when you're using the import mode as a storage mode to bring the data into Power BI. And you see When you're using the import mode, you can actually see this data.
Hi, Pawan. Your voice is breaking.
Refresh the, click on into the filter like ID. Just let me check. Give me a minute. How about now? Is it clear?
Yeah, it's fine.
So what I mean is, if you want to reload some data or refresh some data, you can either click on this refresh tab. If you click on this refresh tab, what will happen? All the tables will be reloaded or refreshed. However, if you want to refresh an individual table, then you can certainly click on these three dots beside individual table, and you can click on refresh data, and that table will be refreshed. Is the point clear, people? Okay. So is the working of import mode clear with everyone? Or storage mode called import mode is understood or not?
Hi Pawan, here Vijay. My name is Vijay.
Yeah, sure. Tell me, please.
So, refresh button we have to do it every time manually, or it is whenever the data
See, the thing
gets.
is, there's a thing called a scheduled refresh as well. We can do
Okay.
it through Power BI service. Once you publish your table or basically your work in Power BI service, you can schedule the refresh automatically at the specified times. That can be done, not a problem. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
So refresh will happen automatically at those specified times. So that can be accomplished. There's no problem with that. Was that the doubt?
Yeah, it's clear. Thanks.
So yeah, so this is what the import mode means. And let me show you one more thing. Okay, let's say I brought this data from the store construction cost, and I think it's here, the store cost. Okay, let me just cut and paste it somewhere else. Okay, so now what I've done, the original source of data, that I have changed its location. Okay, the Excel sheet here, or basically the CSV file, I have changed its location. But still, can you see the data in Power BI? Yes, right? Okay. So the thing is, now you can be sure that the data is actually in Power BI. But when will it be a problem? Any guesses? Let's
When
say,
refresh happen?
yes, if you want to refresh, right? If let's say if I click on refresh this table, then what will happen? Just a second. Is it the same one? Let me check. Construction cost. It's coming from to the transform this thing on the data source settings. Is it the same table that I brought, or was it different? Let me go to the data source settings. I think it was a different folder. That's the reason it's, I think it's class 8. Yeah, sorry. So what I'll do, go to the folder class 8. This is class 4. So I go to class 8, and here I'll go to this and the store cost, right? This is the store cost. I'll cut and paste it somewhere else. Okay. So now let me show you. If I try to, so first of all, let me come out of this Power Query editor. So if I want to refresh this, can you see it's showing an error? refresh is not happening at all. Clear, people?
Yeah.
If I want to refresh it, how could I do it? Yes. I need to go to the data source settings, and basically I'm going to transform data, that is Power Query data, and there I need to go to data source settings. So here, once I do that, this path I need to change. Okay, this path I'll select and I'll click on change source, and then I need to browse it for the exact location. So it is not there, it's exactly here. Okay, store class, and again I'll open it and I'll click on OK. Close this, and now if I close and apply, so that data is loaded again, and now again it will refresh without any problem. Hope the point is clear, people. Yeah, okay. Now let me show you something about one more mode of connection, which is called as direct query mode. Okay, so let me for that open a new Power BI instance. Let me close this one and open new PBI instance. Bank report, and then let me get the data from, let's say, SQL Server database. Click on get data, SQL Server. I need to enter my server name, that is this. Here. The database name, that is sure. Now, if I click on the direct query here, and we already dealt with import mode, if I click on direct query, and again, I'll click on OK. Okay. And then if I select some table, which will be enlisted here, let's say again, I bring the sales order detail, and I load it directly into Power BI. Okay. Now, first of all, you will observe a bit of change compared to earlier once this is loaded. So the first thing first, did you observe some change? Look at this window carefully. Can you see the table view here like it used to be earlier?
No.
There's no table view, right? There are only three views now. One is the report view, then there's the model view, and then there is the third one, which is the DAX query view. However, if you want to see the table like you used to earlier in import mode, you cannot do that. Only what you can do is if you can know the column names by just extending am I audible, people?
Yeah, now you're
Yeah, the thing is, yeah. What I wanted to say is when you are in direct query mode, right, like what we are right now, the thing is this data is not actually coming into Power BI like it used to during import mode.
Pawan, sorry, your screen is not sharing.
Oh, sorry. I'll just start sharing again. Is the screen visible right now?
Yeah, it is.
So what I wanted to say is, when we're in direct query mode, the data is still in the backend itself.
కూర్చున్నావు అది ఊగుతుంది ఒకటి యువతలది
I request everyone to please.
యువతలు ఊగుతుంది అవతల
Okay. So the data which you're seeing here while we're in direct query mode, this data is not actually in Power BI, or this is not actually stored in Power BI like it used to be in import mode. It still is stored in the backend itself. And when I say backend, in this case, I mean SQL Server. Okay. What we have here in Power BI is just a connection established between Power BI and SQL Server. Okay. And data is still coming directly from SQL Server. It's not stored as a buffer in Power BI. Is that point clear, people? Yes or no?
Yeah.
And importantly, when we are in direct query, you need not refresh the button. I mean, use the refresh button now and then to get the data reloaded into Power BI. Whenever the data is updated in the backend, it will automatically appear in Power BI as well, updated. Clear, people?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the inherent or basic difference between import mode and direct query mode. Okay. The rest of the differences are just the extensions. But let me ask you once again, is the main difference clear between, clear to everyone between the import mode and direct query mode? If you have some doubts, please do ask without any hesitation. I hope it's clear with everyone. So now let's try to have a look at the differences in the detail. Okay. Yeah, I think that there are certain differences and we can look at it in the next class. Okay. So tomorrow we'll look into these differences in quite detail. Anyone has any doubt with respect to today's class, people, or what is covered till now, or with respect to this course, anything from your side?
Hi, Pavan. This is my question. So, do we have the classes on weekends tomorrow, or only from this class that starts from Monday to Friday?
It will be only from Monday to Friday.
So, there will be no class tomorrow. We'll be meeting on Monday.
Yes.
Thanks. And I just want to ask one more question, not related to this. So, how can we relate this course and the person who's having around 9 to 10 years of experience into testing field? How can be this course will be the added advantage for him?
Yeah. So when you say testing, let me ask you what exact testing you have done.
I mean API testing, manual plus API, SOAP UI plus Postman.
Testing related to maybe the analytics domain as well.
Not the analytics, it's finance and banking sector.
Okay. And when you say finance and banking sector, you mean the data validation part as well, right? You
Exactly. Yeah, the customer validation part. Yeah,
Yes.
address names.
So when that's the case, the thing is, in testing we do the data validation. In the analytics or the BI development part, you do the development as well. Development in the sense you actually build the dashboard by getting the data from the backend, and ultimately before submitting the dashboard for QA, you do the validation yourself. Okay. Now, the way in which you will be having the advantage of doing this particular course is that, I mean, if you know the Power BI, one thing you already know, that is how the validation is done, okay, from the backend. So
Yep.
that is an added advantage. And the way this you can relate or maybe helpful for you is you can move to the development part. So that's what it will help you, development or maybe the analytics part, where you establish the connection between the business end and the developers. I think you have heard about the business analysts or the data analysts, right?
Yeah.
So
I got that.
yeah, so if you have good skills in SQL as well as Power BI, then you can be a bridge between the developers and the business end, and that is what the business analysts or data analysts they basically do. So this will be really helpful and in that regard. Hope it's clear.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Thanks for confirming, clarifying it out.
Sure. Anyone else has any doubts? If there are no further doubts, then let me just close this session. First, let me stop the recording.